Nina said it out loud, and Port Charles should have listened. Let us start with Nina, because what she said in that argument with Willow is not just the most honest thing spoken in Port Charles this week. It is the kind of line that soap opera audiences recognize immediately as a promise the show is making about what is coming. And the promise is not a comfortable one. Nina looked at Willow, her daughter, the person she has covered for and protected and put herself at risk for repeatedly across this entire summer, and said plainly that if this escalation does not find a resting place, something truly tragic is going to happen. Willow did not hear it. She was in full victory mode. She believed she was in the driver's seat. She had just walked out of Michael's kitchen with the children for the week, which she was reading as Michael acknowledging defeat rather than Michael making a strategic choice to de-escalate temporarily. She was explaining to Nina why the current situation was actually going exactly the way she planned it to go. Nina knows better. Nina has been watching this situation from the specific vantage point of someone who loves both of the people involved, genuinely loves Willow, has complicated but real feelings about Michael, and who can see that what looks like winning from inside the conflict looks nothing like winning from the outside. What it looks like from the outside is two people pushing each other toward a ledge with no clear understanding of how close to the edge they are. Something truly tragic. In the language of soap opera, that phrase does not exist without consequence. Nina did not say it idly. She said it because she meant it, and because the story the show is telling around this custody battle is building toward exactly the kind of consequence that Nina's warning describes. Someone is going to be hurt. Not emotionally, not legally, not professionally, genuinely hurt. Life-threateningly hurt. The escalation that has been happening between Michael and Willow all summer, layer by layer, scheme by scheme, threat by threat, is heading toward a moment that cannot be managed as neatly as the ones that came before it. Now here is where the speculation gets genuinely interesting. Because the fall also carries Brennan's exit, and Brennan's exit has been confirmed as a fatal one. And the scenario being considered, Willow doing something to harm Michael, or trying to, and Brennan getting in the way of that attempt, is the kind of dramatic intersection that Port Charles excels at constructing. Willow has already shot Drew twice. She has drugged people. She has attempted to drown someone through Nina's actions that Willow was complicit in creating the conditions for. She has made threats about using her political office to cut Michael off from his children. She is someone who, when pushed to the limit of what she believes she can survive, takes action that she tells herself is necessary and that the rest of the world would describe as criminal. Michael coming to her with the information from Trina and Kai, telling her he knows she pulled the trigger on Drew, that he now has witnesses, that the custody battle has just shifted completely in his favor, is the push that could take Willow past the limit again. Because Michael knowing that is not just a legal development. It is the end of the leverage she thought she had. It is the destruction of the version of herself she has been presenting to the world. It is the moment where everything she has been protecting comes under direct and immediate threat. A Willow who has been backed completely into a corner, who has nothing left to lose, who has demonstrated across this entire summer that she is capable of acting on the worst impulses of her fear. That Willow is genuinely dangerous in a way that the people around her have not fully accounted for. And if Brennan is in the vicinity when that danger expresses itself, if he steps in the way of something Willow sets in motion, if he becomes the person who absorbs the consequence of an action aimed somewhere else, the tragic ending Nina warned about arrives in the form of a man Willow never intended to hurt, dying because of a chain of events Willow set in motion. That is the tragedy Nina was warning about. And Willow, who is currently celebrating what she thinks is a victory, is heading toward it without any idea it is waiting. Curtis gets the verdict he never let himself imagine. Now let us talk about Curtis, because the jury has come back and based on everything the show has been setting up, the answer they have delivered is not the one he was counting on. Guilty. Curtis rejected the plea deal. He made the decision with the full force of his conviction that he was right about Isaiah, about what happened, about the fact that going to court and making the case was the way to get the outcome he needed. He had Martin. He had his testimony. He had the specific righteousness of a man who believes he was defending something real. What he did not have was the ability to make the jury see the situation the way he saw it. And Martin's aggressive cross-examination of Isaiah, which was designed to create doubt about Isaiah's version of events, may have worked against Curtis in a specific way that aggressive defense strategies sometimes work against their clients. Juries do not always respond to watching the plaintiff get torn apart. Sometimes it produces sympathy for the person who is hurt rather than doubt about the case. Curtis committed a serious crime. That is the truth that sits underneath everything else. He attacked Isaiah and injured his hand in a way that threatened his surgical career. He did this based on a version of events that was wrong. He did not investigate before acting. He did not wait for evidence before responding with violence. And however understandable the emotional context, the fear about Portia, the jealousy, the protective instincts toward the woman he was still connected to, the action itself was what it was. The jury apparently decided the same thing. What this verdict costs Curtis is almost too much to sit with. Desmond is weeks old. The bonding period that should be the most foundational part of a father's relationship with his child is happening right now, in these early weeks and months. And Curtis is about to go to Pentonville. Not for 8 months, which was the plea deal he could have had. For whatever the court decides based on the guilty verdict, he is going to receive instead. Trina has already been processing a version of this possibility all summer, telling Kai at Bobby's that she has been trying not to obsess over what is happening with her parents, but cannot help worrying about her father going to prison. She said it was something she never thought she would say out loud. Now she is going to have to say it in a different register. Not a worry, not a fear, not a possibility she is trying not to think about. A reality. Marshall. Stella. The family who loves Curtis with the specific fierce love of people who have been through real difficulty together and who hold each other with the particular tenderness of a family that knows loss. This verdict is going to devastate them in ways that go beyond the immediate legal situation. And Portia, who admitted to Isaiah that it would be easier for her if Curtis were convicted, who then immediately acknowledged that easier for her is not what is best for her children, who has been caught between those two truths all week in the way that adults are sometimes caught between what they feel and what they know is right. Now the verdict is here. And whatever Portia feels about it, relief, guilt about the relief, grief, complicated gratitude, the whole impossible mixture, she is going to have to live with it while raising both Desmond and navigating Trina's devastation. Pentonville and the cellmate combination nobody saw coming. And now let us talk about what happens when Curtis gets to Pentonville. Because the information that has come from behind the scenes, the actor who plays Jens revealing that his character's cellmate at Pentonville is someone the audience will recognize, points in a direction that is simultaneously obvious once you say it out loud, and genuinely surprising because nobody was expecting it. Curtis and Jens as cellmates. Sit with that combination for a moment. Curtis Ashford, who spent this entire summer believing Isaiah Gannon was the person who left him and Jordan to die in that car, who attacked Isaiah and injured his hand, who rejected a plea deal and went to trial and lost. That Curtis, in a prison cell with the man who actually orchestrated so much of what damaged Port Charles this summer. Jens is not a passive cellmate. He is someone who operated internationally, who blackmailed and coerced and manipulated with a specific institutional expertise. He is someone who has spent this summer watching his operation get dismantled from the inside of a cell, and who has every reason to be interested in the people who are adjacent to his world. Curtis, through his connection to Isaiah, who had ties to Jens' operations, through his connection to Jordan, who worked for Jens, through the general Port Charles web that makes everyone connected to everyone, is not a stranger to Jens' world, even if Jens is a stranger to Curtis. And Jens, who is looking at 26 years minimum before parole eligibility, is not done making moves. He has been in custody, and he has still been a factor in the story. In Pentonville, with a cellmate who has access to Port Charles relationships and Port Charles information, he is going to find ways to remain relevant to the drama happening outside the walls. The possibility of an alliance forming between Curtis and Jens is the development being pointed toward. Not necessarily a warm one, not a relationship built on genuine affinity, but the kind of pragmatic partnership that prison sometimes produces between people who have different things the other one needs. Curtis might need protection in an unfamiliar environment. Jens might need someone who still has connections on the outside, and who has reason to work against some of the same people Jens wants to damage.